Amsterdam come about? I understand you and Christian started talking about the project about 5 years ago.
Yes. Christian and I really wanted to make a movie about friendship and loyalty through all kinds of circumstances, an epic story about two very close friends and a woman who joined them as the third part of that friendship and was the lover of one of them. And this, to us, was the reason for doing the whole picture, was to imagine going through these events together, and events that are part historical, part fiction. And people who manage to always find a reason to love life. A song they sing, they have to speak French, they have to sing in French, and this becomes their bedrock of how they get through everything. And over the course of the story, they're reunited, and the two guys have become fixers, one a doctor, one a lawyer, and they're fixers of last resort. They don't have a lot of money or resources, but they're good guys, they're good friends, and they'll try to help you out with any trouble you have. And they then rediscover their friend Valerie. So that's Burt Berenson, Christian Bale, Harold Woodman, John David Washington, and Valerie Vose, Margot Robbie. And my aspiration as a writer and a director with Christian, working on this over 5 years of meetings in a diner, and Margot was probably part of that for 3 or 4 years, and John David at least 18 months of that, is to see actors in ways you've never seen them before. That, to me, is my special effect. The special effect is the fun of seeing these characters and meeting them and wanting to hang out with them and wanting to spend time with them and see them face adversity with a great sense of humor and a great sense of love of life in spite of the trouble. And this is true in The Fighter. It's also true in Silver Linings. It's also true in Amsterdam. It's also true in Joy.
So with a film that's about the power of friendship and having very hopeful, positive, optimistic themes overall, what was your inspiration to make a film about that?
I think all the films I've made have had people who are outsiders, whether it's The Fighter or Silver Linings. They're outsiders who are facing tough odds and are in very specific worlds, worlds that we create, worlds that I want to hang out in, worlds that are enchanting, worlds that, as a goer, as an audience of movies, I love when I go to a world that I want to hang out in and be in, and it's enchanting and specific, whether it's Lowell outside of Boston in the 90s, or whether it's the 70s in New York with American Hustle, Philadelphia, outside Philadelphia, in the recent years, very specific neighborhood. This is Europe and New York over almost a 20-year period that feels contemporary, yet it's almost 80 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. But I love how contemporary it feels. So they discovered the time of their lives in Amsterdam, which asked the question, after they faced death and blood, and Valerie Vose literally took metal out of their bodies of Burt Berenson and Harold Woodman and made it into art, which was a whole new art movement at the time that made sense out of nonsense, history being the nonsense and madness that people couldn't make sense of. So they said, if we're going to make nonsense, we'll make our own beautiful nonsense that's fun. And Christian Bale always said his grandmother, her happiest time of her life was during the London Blitz. That's another war, a different time, but when they were being bombed in London. And he said, why? She said, well, you face death every day, so you managed to love what you loved and really appreciate it, whether it was a cup of milk, a coffee, something to eat, a conversation with a friend, a joke. You know, your sense of humor gets better. You have a better, darker sense of humor. So these guys learn to sing and have a great time together. So my question is always, what's your Amsterdam? What makes you remember that life is always worth living, no matter how tough it gets? For me, it's a certain time we had where our dog a while ago ate a hamburger and also escaped our yard. and we also got stuck without electricity, yet we discovered things we'd never done before without electricity. We made candles, and we played games with the kids and everybody that we hadn't done in years. And we probably got closer as a result of that. And these guys have a much more adverse circumstance in which they meet that bonds them.
Your script is fictitious, but some of the events that take place on screen are based on actual historical events. Why was this important to you, and did that present any difficulties?
It's exciting for a filmmaker to have unknown history that feels shocking and amazing. That's a secret plutonium that a filmmaker has. And you're sitting on it, and you know your characters are going to go right into it. They're going to live through it and go out of it, and they're going to land in this situation. And the question is, what's going to happen? How are they going to survive while they're loving each other and still having a good time?
Did you film the story with a large format theater in mind?
Chivo Emanuel Lubezki, the cinematographer, chose a very large negative format that gave us a much bigger resolution and much bigger negative than normal. And that meant it could be appreciated in a lush, immersive environment that we were creating out of lush colors that made up the world, and a feeling of the point of view of the characters. So you're always feeling this propulsive experience that's luscious and fun. It's fun to get all these actors together, and it's fun to see them be who they are. All the characters we like are funny, not because they're trying to be funny, just because of who they are.
Piggybacking off, talking about Chivo, could you just talk about the contribution of your award-winning team behind the camera, like, of course, the DP, but also production designer Judy Becker, editor Jay Cassidy, costume designers Albert Wolski, and Jared
Hawbaker, great name, yeah. Well, it's everything. We were all very excited to make the picture. We prepped it twice due to the pandemic, and we were excited. You know, it was like we were a band who really wanted to play together. And that included the whole cast, and it included Chivo, who went through 2 preps with us, 2 camera tests. Judy Becker, the designer, in collaboration. This is probably our 4th or 5th movie together. J.R. Hawbaker, our first, following Albert Wolski, who's a legend. He's in his 90s, and the pandemic presented great challenges for his safety. And so J.R. Hawbaker was honored to step in to help and create these looks, very specific looks, very specific. There's going to be a boutique, because these are very original clothing that Valerie Vose, Margot Robbie wears. Burt Berenson, the doctor, Christian Bale, his look, John David Washington, Harold Woodman, his look, Robert De Niro, General Gil Dillenbeck. Robert De Niro was also involved in talking about this movie for over several years to create his character. The operator, Scott Sakamoto, the gaffer, Michael Bauman, these are all extraordinary artists and filmmakers. And Jay Cassidy is a filmmaker every bit as much as anybody else, and that includes the director. Jay's the editor, and the movie's made completely in post. Yes, it's made when you write it, and I wrote this script probably 20 times. It could be a novel over those 5 years with Christian. But by the time you finish making it, Jay Cassidy, we make the movie again in the edit room. And Jay is a very passionate filmmaker who's incredibly smart and loves the film as much as anybody involved in it does. And he's indispensable. I don't have enough words to say about him, about what he does in terms of making a movie better, challenging me. I like to be challenged. I think the best creative choices happen when you're challenged. Creative debate is a good, healthy debate. Christian was in the edit room a lot. So was Rami Malek. So was Margot Robbie. They were the ones who were probably in there the most. And Jay's always there. He lives with the movie. He takes it home. So I can't say how grateful I am for everybody who put the movie together.